Well, good evening. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and I am back for another edition of the Sunday Night AstroLive. We're just hey, there's two of me. Now there's just one of me. Okay, well, we're back again. I switched. I have two Wi-Fi transmitters in my house, so I switched up, and we're on the other one now. Hopefully that'll work. Cheers, little Zevia. Maybe I'll get rid of the aluminum microplastics, and I'll pour it in this glass where it has a milky-like texture, because I just had some eggnog. Now it's Zevia nog. Look who's here. It's the astrological cat, the astrological weather cat, Miss Peachy. Yes, Miss Peachy. She's a mystery cat. She just popped into our lives. Now she just pops in whenever she wants pets. How is everybody? It is Sunday night, and let's toast to Sagittarius. We are now fully vested in the most gustatory month of the zodiac. And the motto of Sagittarius, of course, is everything worth doing is worth overdoing. Or as William Blake, Sagittarian, once said, of excess leads to the palace of wisdom. Think about that. You don't know what is too much until you've had enough, or more than enough. At least for some people. Some people have quite a bit of an appetite for certain things, so their limits are much more expansive. You ever hang out with somebody who has Mars and Sagittarius and they get cooking? They're something to hang out with. Anyway, I like Sagittarius. For a long time, I noticed when I was younger, you don't really know about astrology, but you notice like certain people that sometimes you don't click with. Sometimes I found it wasn't really clicking. I would say to some degree is that I am a Virgo, and Sagittarians are well, they're in the mutable family, but the sun's square. And I used to have this friend. He was a great guy and a legendary Sagittarius, and I mean legend. I loved him, absolutely loved him. And he and I, we would during our younger days partake in certain substances, and he was wild, but he could not hold his liquor. I always had to like mop him off the street, and it was me, the Virgo, being responsible for the Sagittarius. That's what it came down to. I still love him. Great guy. I hope he's still around. Keith, wherever you are, my brother, I hope your heart is still pumping. You were a legend, absolute legend. So yeah, we're in Sagittarius, and I really thought Scorpio was a really interesting month this year. Normally, I'm a Scorpio rising, and I always deal with kind of crawling into a hole, when the sun ducks into my 12th house once a year. But this year I had both the sun and Mars. Now I got a Mercury retrograde. So it's been really interesting Scorpio season. But one of the things that's helped me get into the energy of astrology, which we can talk about tonight, is that when I was doing the thumbnails for the astro weather, I wanted them to be all Scorpio. It's kind of a theme that I started with Taurus, and I started to do like all these crazy cow photos with cows with wings and cows surfing. And so I was trying to invoke the energy of Taurus, and we kept going. I did a bunch of like Gemini stuff and twins and reflections, and um, by the time we got to Libra, I was doing the babes from the old Star Trek series. Kind of these Venusian archetypes, right? These Venusian goddesses, and I just felt like it was a really cool way to get into the energy of the of the season every day with that thumbnail, with that kind of blueprint. And with Scorpio, it really allowed me to indulge in sort of a darker, more monochromatic version of the world. And I love black and white, and I love bleak pictures. I mean, I don't know. To me, that's very Scorpionic. And it also got me into sort of the dark birds, like the ravens and the crows and the magpies. And I've been totally getting into raven and crow videos on YouTube. I know everybody goes through a kind of a crow phase on YouTube. But yesterday I was making room for some DVDs, and I actually found this book. I found this book that somebody gave it to me, and it's the Little Library of Earth Medicine, and I'm born in the month of the Crow. Look at that, September 22nd, first day of the Crow. And I remember skimming through this. That was my friend Linda gave this to me. Thank you, Linda. This is a while ago. So it talks about crow medicine. I have to spend a little time with this because I am definitely kind of hooked on the crow thing right now. They're very interesting, these crows. So anyway, I got to come up with some imagery for Sagittarius tonight. We're going to try to keep the show around 2 hours. That's the new format. So all you East Coasters, you'll be in bed by 10 or roughly thereabouts. That's a reasonable time, right? All you West Coast, just getting started. By the time we're done, it'll be, I don't know what you do at 7 o'clock. Watch Netflix and chill. Watched Blade Runner again last night for the first time in a long time. It's kind of, it's a masterpiece. It's really a masterpiece. Although some of the characters I wish didn't get killed off so quickly. Like that one bot, that one android replicant that wasn't Daryl Hannah. She was this dancer. She was kind of interesting, and she gets taken out pretty quickly. And Daryl Hannah's, I don't know if that was her screen debut or not. It might have been. She was phenomenal. I thought she was phenomenal. She had like total presence in that movie, and she'd been a Helmut Newton model. That's what she had done. She was from Chicago. Model. She did some news for Helmut Newton. I was like, wow. She was young too. She might have been about 18 years old. I think she was 18. Anyway, but Blade Runner, kick-ass movie. And I had never really paid attention to the little animals that the Edward James Olmos character would make. And they were kind of these running commentaries on Decker, played by Harrison Ford when he was coming through. Anyway, it was a good watch. And I watched it because it was Sean Young's birthday the other day. All right, who do we have in house? DJ MC, what's going on? There she is. Mimi. Let's see, what do we, it's Mimi Michi 109. There we go. I know you are. Kevin Stick-Evers, Pluto. Did I say Pluro? Do I have to redo the thumbnail? Let me see. I'm not going to do it now. I'll do it later. You guys get it. Thanks, Kev. Let's see who else. Jam Chloe. What's up, Jam Chloe? Charlie Sargent, Best Illustrated Dispensational Doctrine. Tony Hopkins, Zion 4131. Please consider. Thank you. Charlie. God bless you. That's all I have to say. Benito was thinking about you just before the show. What's up, brother? Kabuki Theater is here. Hey, Bo. Hey, there he is, back from his successful, wildly successful stop somewhere in the Southwest. Mark S. Putting grins on faces from coast to coast. Let's see. Healing Heart Rosie is all screwed up in Google. And the Smirker is bringing back. Okay. So I have a Healing Heart Rosie sighting. I don't know. Let's see what else we have here. Cassandra Lynn. What's up, Cassandra Lynn? Down the Wombat Hole is with us. That Trickster Scorpio new moon was right. I mean, so if we go back to last week, I said there was going to be some kind of an announcement. Something was going to come up. Something was going to come out. I got my day wrong because usually Friday is the news dump day, and I thought this was going to somehow come out on Thursday. Well, two things happened. One is Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned. Now, I thought about doing her chart, but I don't have her birth time. And in a case like that, like if I'm doing like a synastry chart and I have a chart for an anchor and I know the birth time, the other person doesn't have a birth time, I can generally do it. You know, if we're messing around with like Kash Patel and Alexis Wilkins, I mean, you know, why not, right? I mean, because they're messing around in our time. I can mess around in my time with their charts. But something like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I feel like in order to really look at her resignation correctly, like we need a birth time. So I'm not going to try to connect some dots there. We are, however, going to talk about Pluto and the obsessive nature of Pluto as it relates to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. And also kind of the sign of Sagittarius overall and where we are astrologically. So we get into all that tonight. I found out that my website, part of my website for readings has been broken. So I'm working to fix that, which means that I have people not been able to get in touch with me. And I was not aware of that. So anyway, I'm working on getting the website. Well, we should have a new website this week. Fingers crossed. But I'm also getting that part of it fixed. So I should have that hopefully fixed by tomorrow. And I know that some of you have purchased readings. So hang in there. We're going to get to the bottom of this. If not, we'll have a different discussion. Amy V. 0.991. What's up? Elsbeth Herring. Hey, good to see you. El's been around for a bit. Good to see her. Diane Evans is here. So does Peter Bayonne. What's happening? Janine is with us, the California Contrarian. Who else do we have here? And Andrew Garland. Here we go. Hi, Andrea. Lois French. Hi, Lois Francis. Kind of like French. Nocatino is here. What's up, Nocatino? Viva Barnes and destroying Trump's administration. That's not hard to do. I talked about this before. Trump went a complete 180. Like the first administration he had was nothing but insiders, just nothing but insiders. People that were like, they were the equivalent. When you were a kid and you put the bumpers around, the sharp edged objects in your living room for your baby, the baby bumpers, like your table and things, so the baby doesn't fall and crack their head on a pointed surface. Trump's first administration was baby bumpers. There wasn't anybody in his administration, with the exception of Jared, who wasn't even an official member, who was like solidly on Team Trump. They all had their own agendas. They all came from the donor class at that time. They were all part of the deep bowels of the GOP, right? The deep bowels. So that's who Trump had. 180 this time around, he's got nothing but bobbleheads. Nothing but bobbleheads. And Pam Bondi, people say, this is too political sometimes. We live in a political time. I'll try to steer away from that a little bit, but we can't. Everything is happening on a political level. We're still dealing with the aftershocks of Pluto and Capricorn, right? That wave has caught up to us, but now we're dealing with it from a different angle, which is Pluto and Aquarius. So anyway, it's almost unavoidable to talk about political systems and social change, because political systems and politics theoretically is the engine, the driver, the theater that directs social change. It's not always change for the better, by the way. Change can mean anything. So that's why it gets brought up here more often than not, because things are happening at a socio-political level. Now, things are happening above that and beyond that. And we can talk about things like energies. If you want to talk about energies, people love it when you talk about energies, because it makes them feel good. Like, what kind of energies can I expect? What kind of energies are available to me? How do I expand the awareness of my own energy? These are all really good questions for Sagittarius season, because that's where that's the height of our curiosity. It is the peak of the chart. It is in the 9th house, right? That is the upper room of the chart. That's where not just our minds, right, but our transpersonal minds, the mind beyond the mind, the higher mind gets activated. This is the mind that is in search of the answers for the universe, right? The mind that is thirsty for the knowledge of the ancients and beyond. This is what Sagittarius is all about. Gemini, the opposite sign, gives us the information, the gossip, the data of the world that's driven daily by all of that. Sagittarius, however, forces us to reach, to go beyond our ability to perceive what we're able to put together, like, in terms of our systems and our cosmology. Sagittarius is always, exhorting the individual to pull that bow back a little bit further, shoot that arrow a little bit farther, a little bit truer, right? And I think it's a great time of year. It's a really, really great time of year. And there's usually generally a good spirit and a good vibe that starts right around this time. Much more of a feeling of joviality and celebration and expansion. Of course, your waist will get expanded if you don't watch it during this season, because there's always so many good things to eat, and most of them are very high in calories. But we can talk about Sagittarius. William Blake, who's one of my favorite Sagittarians, and I've said this before, um, in his letters, somebody asked him, how come you don't dumb your art down? Basically, that's what they were asking him. And he said, I don't want my art to touch the common man. I want them to reach for it. Right? That's Sagittarius. Like I want you to reach for my art. I want you to be able to go beyond your ability to perceive the world through your four senses. Right? You can bring in the fifth sense with Sagittarius, right? Which is an amalgamation of all the senses. So it's a really interesting time of year. And we're starting off with a Mercury retrograde, taking us back into Scorpio. Jefferey Epstein, more than appropriate, because now we're going back, and like Larry Summers had a bad week last week. Talking about, it's just like they threw a big, like you're in Alaska, you just throw a big net out into the ocean, and you get all these crab and shit, and you've seen those fishing shows, and they go through and they put in the various hoppers, like the crab go here, flounder go here, lobster go here, right? Like that's how they do all that shit. And then Larry Summers shows up. It's like he's like a great white, right? Like holy shit! Look at these emails. We got an email from Larry Summers to Jeffrey Epstein, and it's all about how can I cheat on my wife successfully. It's like see ya. Larry Summers is a deep state eel. That's what he is. He's an eel, a deep state eel. And it doesn't matter what side of the political fence he's on. He's just there to make money, right? Money, power, and the facilitation of it. He got caught. That's a bad. What is Larry Summers' sign? Let me just see if I can find it really quickly. It's a very superficial rendering. November 30th, he's a Sagittarius. He's a Sagittarius. Let me see if we find some astrological chart. We might. You never know. Astrological chart. You never know. He's pretty obscure. I wasn't planning on looking at his chart, but he's pretty obscure. Ask Oracle. So he is a Sagittarius. He was born in New Haven, Connecticut. Let's see. He has, what's he got in Scorpio? Oh, yeah, he's got Mercury in Scorpio. We can do a quick little look-see at Larry Ellis. This is a 12 noon chart. There's no birth time for him, but we can just get a look at his planets here. I may have to burn this one, so hold on. Let me go back and look. Oh, yeah, look, not bad. Okay, there we go. All right, this is just a quick look. This is not anything in depth, but there's his Mercury, Venus, Saturn. So Mercury went retrograde on his sun. And now it's back in Mercury retrograde. Look at that. And he's got this Mercury Pluto square in his chart, and he's got a Mercury Mars square. Mars in Aquarius. Yes. He got caught with his hands in the cookie jar. So this guy works at Harvard. He's a professor at Harvard. He was on the board of OpenAI. And he has been a deep state eel for years and was involved in alleged copyright theft for all of these internet applications, Web 1.0, with him and the Clintons and Vernon Jordan. And what's his former female mentee forget her name. She's out in Silicon Valley. I think she works for Google now, or one of those tech bro companies. But yeah, there you go. You want to see Mercury retrograde in action? Mercury started retrograding right on the sun, right on the sun, and now it's back into Scorpio. And Larry Ellison's got problems. I'm sorry, Larry Summers. Larry Summers has problems. And he's radioactive now. This is a guy. I mean, you have Larry Summers on the board of OpenAI because you want him for other investors. Like, he gives you like gravitas, right? Oh, we got Larry Summers on the board. Let's get some more money. You don't have him anymore. You don't. Did you know that Sam Altman from OpenAI is married to a dude, and they both plan on doing CRISPR? And it's like, these are the people that are making the rules for the new world with OpenAI. They're going to biologically alter their offspring in a CRISPR machine or a CRISPR device, whatever you do with them, right? Like, you can see the gene sequencing, and you go in and you can edit it, right? That's what they plan on doing. And his name is Altman. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So these are the people that are the engineers of the new world, right? This is where shit tons of tax money, this $1 billion from Saudi Arabia, which is going to theoretically come to the U.S. Where do you think it's going to go? You think it's going to show up in your $2,000 Donald Trump digital coin? No, it's going to go to people like Larry Ellison and Sam Altman and OpenAI, and they're going to get huge tax breaks and incentives for their AI centers. This is going to be the new infrastructure that the Trump administration is banking on. But I just think it's really weird. Like, sometimes all you need to know about somebody is their name, Sam Altman. And that's what he's going to be doing. He's going to be altering his, I don't know, synthetic children. It's weird. Really, really weird. Okay, before we go any further, there's 240 of you here. Welcome to the show. I do want to tell you about we have two sponsors, but at the beginning of the show today, I have to give a shout out to Silver-Botanicals, because Silver-Botanicals is a great. It's a great sponsor. I did a remote from Silver-Botanicals, and we had a great show on Friday. Dean was there, Ray was there. We went through all the products. It was very, very cool. And we have a new deal, which is the gift of the Magi package, and it's the link is in the description of the show. Let me see if I can find it and bring it up here for you guys. Let me just do this quickly. That way we can just kind of go through it. Huh. You don't want to play nice? Okay, let's go back here. Here we go. Now we're playing nice. I see. Okay. Let's go back here. And let me just do this. There we go. Got it. Okay. So this is the gift of the Magi bundle. We're just going to go through this really quickly. And you get all these products. Are phenomenal. If you haven't, look, Friday's show for me was really enlightening, because, again, the second time I'd been to their It's a micro factory where they make this stuff. It's 2 guys. The entire operation, guerrilla operation. And so we did an interview with Dean, who's the scientist and the guy who compiles all this stuff, and Ray, who runs all the systems. So what they've done is they put together the Gift of the Magi bundle. So the Gift of the Magi is a room and body spray, and it's made with all the ingredients from the Bible. So if you've got somebody who's in your life who's a really big Christian or Bible person, they will love it. Everything in the Bible, every ingredient is listed in the Bible. Okay. We've got the total body skin therapy. These are all nanified silver products, high quality silver. They start with the highest. Not all silver is made the same. This is the highest quality silver they can find. So in this bottle here, you basically get 2 baths. Okay. You get the botanical sea serum, which is great for your skin. The silver mist humidifier, that's this right there. You add it to your humidifier or one of those masks that you wear, right? And they have directions, parts per each, where you want to add them. We have the Silver Shield deodorant. We have the Silver Shield sanitizer, which is great. And then there is the oral care, Silver Tongue oral care, great mouthwash. So you're getting all these goodies for $74.94, and the shipping comes free. There you go. If you just want to buy one thing, just go in there. You get 10% off anything just by typing in Astro Weather. So if you just wanted to get a couple bottles of the sea serum, you can do that. There's your 10% off, right? But they're making all that available for just $79.94. Normally it's $100 plus you get the shipping. And I think it's a really great gift idea to give to somebody, right? It's like, here you go. Here's your gift from the Magi. That's for you. So Silver-Botanicals. Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Let's talk a little bit about Sagittarius. Let's talk about a little Sagittarius. And this is, I'm going to give you guys kind of a constellation look at Sagittarius. And it's an interesting constellation because it nuzzles up near the galactic center. Now, I guess you would say sidereal in this case, the galactic center is at 3 Sagittarius. However, in Placidus, it is at 26 Sagittarius. So it's a bit off, but I think the Placidus version works. Let's put it that way. Why do I say it works? Because my Jupiter is conjunct the galactic center, so I have some connection. So let's take a look at Sagittarius in the old night sky here. So one of the things you see with Sagittarius is there's like a teapot that's also inside of the Archer. So if you look at the constellation, this is the teapot right here, right? This is Sagittarius. This is the Archer. I guess the nearest star that you would find, a big star, would be Antares. And Antares is like Mars on steroids. Antares is like a god. It's like a god of war, but not just any god, like a berserker god, like an intense super soldier, right? And across from Sagittarius on the ecliptic, you have Gemini. And on Gemini's side, the major fixed star there is Aldebaran. And Aldebaran is like the general of the chart, right? It's like the general of the chart. It's all about planning. It's all about being clever, being wise. It's the chess player. Aldebaran is the chess player of the zodiac. Antares is brute force. Antares is Conan. If you have Mars in Sag conjunct Antares, you are certifiably wild. You are certifiably untamable. Embrace it. Just embrace it. So this is the big kahuna when it comes to Sagittarius, is Antares. All right, so the teapot, this is from the BBC. The teapot asterism is formed from a group of stars within Sagittarius. And the star Delta 6 Sagittarii marks the point where the lid, body, and the spout are joined. Right, so you can see the whole teapot thing going on right there. It has the traditional name of Caus Meridionalis, which refers more to the mythological interpretation of Sagittarius as a centaur archer than a teapot. So Caus has to do with the bow. So you can see in here like all the tiny fixed stars. So this is the teapot, right? There's the Caus Borealis. There's the teaspoon for the teapot right here. Okay. And over here, out here is you have Antares. And these are all of these like star clusters, which are also kind of interesting, connected to Sagittarius. So the three stars in Sagittarius named Caus Borealis, also known as Lambda Sagittarii, Caus Meridionalis, and Caus Australis, Epsilon Sagittarii. The name Caus means bow. The Borealis, Meridionalis, and Australis means northern, middle, and southern. In mythology, the three stars represent the top, middle, and bottom of Sagittarius's bow. You can see that, right? The top, middle, and bottom of Sagittarius's bow. Caus Media, Caus Borealis. That's the top. There's the middle. There's with Caus Australis brightest at magnitude plus 1.8. Then Nunki, Sigma Sagittarii at 2.0, and Acela Zeta Sagittarii at magnitude plus 2.6. Meridionalis shines at mag 2.7, and for once is well labeled as the Delta star because it is the fourth brightest in Sagittarius. In case you're wondering, Rookbot Alpha Sagittarii is mag 3.9, but it's too far south to be seen. So this is all northern sky stuff. Thank you, BBC. The teapot is undoubtedly a great naked eye asterism to see in the summer night sky and one of our favorite summer constellations. And then there are 6 targets in the teapot asterism. There's M22, which is a globular cluster northeast of Caus Borealis. There's NG 6642, Calendar 394, NGC 6716. They're all kind of visible through the prism areas, right? It's an interesting constellation. And again, the idea is that it has this connection with the galactic center, which we've talked about before. And it is through the galactic center and this whole idea of Sagittarius that there is a cosmic order of things, right? Like that's the nature of Sagittarius in general. It could be deep and complex, but there's also this vast cosmic order. When you get to the galactic center, the cosmic order is typified by a black hole or vortex in the galactic center, which is theoretically sucking the entire galaxy inward, but it's also simultaneously pressing outward through the production of neutrinos, which are also being discharged. And then there's a neutron gamma cluster um, right outside the galactic center. And see, it seems to have some kind of relationship with the galactic center, and that it feels like it's like a plasma charge that's connected to the galactic center. Let's see if we can dial that up, just so I can show it to you. So maybe if I can get a good approximation of it. Right. So this isn't bad. Is this what is this? This is live science. This is a pretty interesting picture. Um, yeah. Okay. So here. Let me give you a look. So you can say, well, space is fake and whatever. This is from the Hubble, and when we talk about the galactic center, right? This is what we're referring to here. And there's this interesting quasar kind of on the tip of it. You see what I'm talking about? And it seems to have some connection with whatever cosmic intelligence and energy, and again, what we would call cosmic order emanates from this part of our galaxy, right? This is the galactic hub. And if you go across to the other side of the ecliptic, where Gemini is, you have cosmic disorder, right? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where Sagittarius represents very at times, not in all, like Sagittarius, because it's half centaur and half theoretically human, or more like a demigod, has very animalistic kinds of traits that go along with it. Like part of Sagittarius is very primal. Of all the fire signs, I don't know, Leo and Aries are pretty primal in their own way. But here we have the introduction of a human head into the symbol of Sagittarius, right? The centaur. And it's the human head represents reason and logic and the ability to communicate, like all the things that theoretically make us more evolved than the animals. But then we have the bottom part of Sagittarius, which is the centaur, which is more animalistic, which is more instinctual, which seems to have kind of its own primal driving force. And the idea is to somehow combine the two, right? And so for somebody like Jim Morrison, who's a Sagittarius, Jim Morrison was about the Dionysian side of Sagittarius. Like he would break on through to the other side, right? Like he would follow his instincts and he would follow his kind of like animal magnetism and animal charisma until he got to what William Blake said, which was the road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom. And Jim Morrison, he was a frequent flyer. Well, he was in the fast lane on the road to excess. I'll be mixing metaphors. But he certainly was not anti-psychedelic. He certainly wasn't anti-alcohol. Certainly wasn't anti-weed. He was clearly into altering his consciousness, right? And he was a wild man. Jim Morrison was dangerous. He was very dangerous. But while he was working out, sort of this primal Dionysian mythology, there was another part of him that was in search of, ultimately, I think, something higher, some kind of higher order. And yes, we know all about Douglas Morrison, and we know all about the Laurel Canyon. We know all about how Jim might have been programmed. Like that's in there, but we're just talking about the astrological version of Jim Morrison. And there's this idea of Sagittarius that just wants to transcend limitation. Like Jimi Hendrix was a Sagittarius. And my God, Jimi Hendrix, all he wanted to do was, it's a good thing he could play fucking guitar. Because if he couldn't play guitar the way he did, Jimi Hendrix might have been on the streets. That's how little he really cared about living in this world. Jimmy was cosmic. Jimmy had somehow broken through to the other side. He was where Morrison wanted to be. Morrison is trying to, break free from the shackles of Western conditioning. And Jimi Hendrix he was there, right? But another Sagittarius and very cosmic. He's like the outer reaches of the cosmos. Jimmy's, essentially picking up vibrations from the galactic center, right? And turning them into wicked ass guitar solos. So Sagittarius is a really, really interesting sign. Again, if you look at we'll do a quick Sag Centaur image here. Oh, come on. If you look at the Sag Centaur image, there you go. Let's get a good one. Here's a nice one. And it's connected to the constellation Sagittarius. Let me bring this up here. Oh, it's too small. Hold on. There we go. Here we go. So there's the animal side, right? There's the primal side. And this is supposedly the head of reason and rationality. So Sagittarius is in a lot of ways the culmination of the bottom part of the chart, right? Everything from Aries to Scorpio. This would be like the bottom part of the chart. And this certainly would also very much relate to Scorpio and the sexual, the procreative function, right? And then by the time we get to the top of the chart, which is the midheaven space between Sagittarius and Capricorn, this is where the powers of rationality, the powers of reason, the ability to master the previous 8 signs are all supposed to come together in Sagittarius. This is the nature of Sagittarius. in its ultimate fulfillment. It is the integration of everything that's below the horizon with what's above the horizon so that you can go into the world. I, I have a new cuckoo clock. It plays this every hour now. I think it's that Ode to Joy or something. Sounds very holidayish, doesn't it? Okay. Thank you. Brought to you by Sagittarius. But yeah, this is so the idea is that once you go through the eighth house initiation and you go through a type of death, it's usually with Saturn, by the way. And Saturn goes to your ninth house, transit wise. Then you put all this together. You put the lessons from first house transit Saturn all the way through eighth house transit Saturn. So the idea is that you have mastered everything from the first to the eighth. So now you are ready to enter the wider scope of the world with all of your powers. That's the way it's supposed to work. And then the next house over, going in this direction, is Capricorn. And then you actually enter the world, right? As we can see over here, the archer, the centaur, is pointing backwards, right? So it's pointing backwards across the ecliptic and is ultimately wanting to fire its arrow directly into the sign of the twins, which is chaos and disorder and the trickster, right? The Sagittarians have a great sense of humor, but they also have a side of them that once they are on the other side of something, they can be very sardonic and very wry and very witty and very hilarious in a lot of ways and body humor. But once a Sagittarius has a type of religious conversion or some kind of conversion, usually it's religious, not always, they can become really judgmental, really judgmental. Sagittarians in AA, look out. They're the ones that are running meetings, right? They're into it. They're really into it because it gives them this structure of reform and this idea of the higher mind, right? The higher self, which some of that gets translated through in AA, but it's also just this thing that Sag has. Like, oh yeah, I used to have that. I used to have that terrible habit. Yeah, I'm not like that anymore, right? And sometimes they're cool about it, but they run the risk of being tyrannical. And I've talked about this before, so I can tell you. I'll name some names here, right? So what do Franco, uh, Gabdel Nasser, uh, Joseph Stalin, Allende, and Maduro all have in common? They're all Sagittarians. They're all generals, and they all wound up overtaking their government and they basically run the show with an iron fist. And Stalin is probably the one who's the most notorious. Franco might have been the most successful, but they all fit a pattern. They're all generals in an army. They usually wind up like hopping over or killing the general that they're kind of in competition with. They get them convicted on corruption charges. Sometimes they'll just take them out. In that regard, when Sagittarius decides to make a move to rule, they are ruthless. Really, really ruthless. And we haven't had a Sagittarian president in quite some time. We'd have to go way back for a Sagittarian president. I'm not sure if they make the best presidents, but they do make really great ministers and really great reformers, and also comedians are Sagittarius. Richard Pryor, Sam Kinison, Bill Hicks. I mean, there was a time when I liked Woody Allen. I really don't like Woody Allen that much anymore. But there was a time when Woody Allen was really funny. And Woody Allen's a Sagittarius. So Sagittarians have generally a great sense of humor. And they're not unwilling to poke fun at themselves. Richard Pryor was always like poking fun at himself. But they have this like pivot moment, But the whole idea when they go through a crisis and reform, they go through this pivot moment. But again, the idea of Sagittarius, as we come to the ninth house, right? And starting with Aries, it is the ninth sign, right? So number 9 is significant here, and we've come to a place of completion, right, where the other 8 other signs come together. So then when you step into the 10th house, which reduces to the number 1, right, you are going in an individuated way. Now, I'm going to bring this up here, put this image in here. Just for a moment, pretend this is the first house. It's not the first house, but pretend it's the first house. It's where it is technically, but it should read Aries. So this is where we come in. This is where we're born, right? And we take our first breath. And we go through the various parts of the chart. But by the time we're 2, we're in the second house and we're learning all about toilet training and becoming anal retentive. We are no longer just a blubbery mass of laughter and goo. We have to take care of our shit. Third house, we begin to learn. We begin to speak. We begin to talk. We begin to mimic our siblings, our extended family, early childhood education, right? And then these 3 houses sort of work in concert with each other. And this is your family, your values, what you were raised with, who you were raised around, all those things that you emotionally take into the rest of your life. Over here, you fall in love. This is kind of very adolescent-y, or somewhere in your teens, and you fall in love with something. Like Dean the other day was falling in love with chemistry when he read the Spider-Man cartoons. He fell in love with it. That's what I want to be. I want to be a chemist like Peter Parker. Well, it's weird. I mean, when I was young, our version of Spider-Man was bitten by a radioactive spider. Peter Parker, he wasn't a chemist. Right. I thought, well, this is interesting. I wonder what would have happened if Dean was bitten by a radioactive, if he saw the first Spider-Man. Would he have wanted to become a nuclear physicist? Although that Peter Parker took photos. He was a cub photographer, right? Or something like that. Anyway, this is where you fall in love with something. You say, yeah, I thought, whether it's a person or I love this. This is what I want to do. So then the 6th house is where you learn how to do it, right? It's where you learn how to do it. It's usually through some kind of apprenticeship, or some kind of vocational training, right? That's what you do. You learn something, you learn it, you learn what you love, hopefully. And once you learn something, you can take care of yourself. And there'll be a relationship between the sixth house and the second house, because the second house represents your material values. The sixth house, what you will do to carry those material values out in a way that flows, right? Trying to try. Okay. Once you can take care of yourself, you can take care of another person. Generally, then you're into the seventh house. That's partnership, because you can't really have a true partnership unless you can take care of yourself. Because if you don't have that, you'll just have a parent. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with a kid for long, man or woman, right? So now you have, and this goes for anybody. Now you have people that can take care of themselves, and they can be in an equal but different partnership. Yes, me and you, me and you. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. We get married and we go into the eighth house and we procreate. We make our marriage sacred till death do you part. We make our partnership forever and eternal. And again, just takes Aquarius away. We're just dealing with the eighth house. And this is where you procreate. So eventually your little baby plops out over here and then quickly becomes incarnate body in the second house, right? You come in, you do your Aries thing for maybe about a year, and then you're in the second house. You're much more cognizant of the material world. So you're already lined up, right? And then in the ninth house, what you need after all of this, because you die, right? You die to your own individuality if you follow the evolution of the wheel. So now you need spiritual and religious training for the family that you've created, right? Or in the process of creating. So this is about spiritual and religious training so that you and your family have tools to live by, right? This is the ninth house. This is the higher order of the ninth house. It gives the world, by and large, because it rules religions, right? Whatever you think of religions, they're organizing principles. And Christianity, for better or worse, has allowed us to live in a world which has been, at least for a brief period of time in the West, far more ordered than other cultures, right? There's 10 commandments, there's Psalms. These are all just on the surface, right? But there's this important function of the ninth house, which is seeing the big picture, your place in it, your family's place in it, your children's place in it, right? This is where you become indoctrinated into the cosmology. And the cosmology of the people that have gone before you, and the cosmology of people that will come here after you, right? This is the whole idea of the ninth house. You find your kind of place, and you've mastered all these other things, right? And in this case, if you have a family where you've had children, you've even mastered like procreation to some extent, right? So then we move into the 10th house, and you're ready. You are ready for the 10th house. Right there. Boom. Ready for the world. Like, this is where you're going to spend the next 25 to 30 years of your life. But you have assimilated everything that's gone from here to here. Right? Now, what's happened, this is an older model, but what happened, and I've talked about this before, and it's in my course, by the way, which is a very good course if you haven't picked it up. We start here, and by the time we get to the fifth house, which is right around adolescence, we love this, we don't love that, we love this, we don't love that. We don't go into the sixth house. We don't take a gap year or a couple years to learn something. And instead, we go to the ninth house, which is college. And there's a bypassing of these three critical houses on the journey to self. So I'm not working it out this way, but like my son did this and figured out that this was not the place for him because they weren't teaching him what he needed to know. What he needed to know was down here, right? What he needed to know was people skills, a trade, a craft, right? So like his thing is he's decided wants to become a mixologist, and he's a Pisces. He's really fucking good at it, and he's sending me all these drink recipes, and he does these reductions and all this shit. Right? He's like a chemist with it, or like a DJ. He loves like music as well. So for him, it's art, but it's a tasty art, right? So he had to drop back down to the sixth house. And once he figures this out, once he's got the tools of his trade, he can go on to this other stuff here, right? Because he went up here and there was nothing there for him. And what happens for a lot of people is they'll go through, they'll get a degree, they'll have some experiences, and then they'll be shot out into the world. And they may have some higher learning that they can apply to their 10th house gig, but they've missed this entire portion. And yeah, you get some of it maybe sometimes, but like when I was in school, I worked when I went to school, and I worked like 30 hours a week. And I lived at home, but I still worked, right? So I was getting some sixth house stuff. I had some relationships, so I was getting some seventh house stuff. I went through some darkness, so I definitely got a dose of the eighth house. And then I did wind up in the ninth house, and I had a total higher mind experience as well, right? But I had to kind of drop off and sort of regroup again. But this is one of the things that I think is important. The idea of the ninth house in Sagittarius is that there's steps, there's an order. This is a system, right? And this is the penultimate expression of the system of astrology, if you take it all in. Because once you're in the 10th house, you're there and you're doing the world's work, right? And so whatever kind of personal integration you have, that's what you're bringing. And a lot of people are just very immature when they leave college. We got sucked into this college thing that really hasn't served us. I mean, it has in some ways, but in other ways, and it's all post World War II. It's all GI Bill. All these men coming back, and now we get to this one sort of horrific ninth house story where we just want to bring 600,000 students over. What? That's very ninth housey, but we tend to have our own students here that they could have a very good ninth house experience. And Laura Ingraham, I don't know what sign she is, but she sure looks like a Sag. She says to Trump, well, what about our talent? And Trump says, you don't have any talent. No, we don't have any talent. You don't have any talent. Meaning that the class that Laura Ingraham represents doesn't have any talent. So all you young men out there, figure out the sixth house. Find a trade. Find something that you can do with your hands and your mind, right? And if these 600,000 so-called students, we know a lot of them are spies, come to this country and go to college and take AI jobs, you get in and you re-energize the workforce. You roll up your sleeves You learn a craft, you learn a trade, and you start kicking ass, right? And you work as much as your own as possible. And if not on your own, then have a trade that's independent and you can take it anywhere. Because the ninth house has become a marketplace, and not even a marketplace of ideas. It just became a marketplace, and it got taken over ideologically by the Marxists, post 1970s. That's when you had essentially the radical boomers moving into the university space. The universities where they once protested, they became teachers. And you think that they taught your children Ayn Rand and the Vienna School of Monetary Theory and libertarianism? No, they didn't. They studied Frantz Fanon and Che Guevara and Antonio Gramsci and Foucault and the French deconstructionists. Very heady stuff, right? It's all very frothy, heady, ninth house stuff, Deleuze, all those characters, right? Once you learn about postmodernism and deconstructionism, you're given a tool to see the world through. It's a system. And everything can just go through that kind of Foucault-like lens. Everything. And it gives these students this idea that they have this superpower that they've been indoctrinated into by understanding how to decode postmodern constructive. It's all very ninth house, but it got taken over by the young radicals. Okay, so Sagittarius, we're here. What can we expect of it? Fun, enjoyment, a sense of ribald humor, right? I love the hardiness of Sagittarius. The character Falstaff in Shakespeare is a very Sagittarian-like figure. Big, hearty, belly laughing, sort of taking the piss out of life, right? But in a good way. Sagittarius can become cynical. If Sagittarius is let down by an institution or it's let down by an individual, like they'll become cynical, and you'll lose them. You will lose a cynical Sag. They're gone, right? That's the downside. That's the negative side of Sagittarius. The positive side of Sagittarius is an openness and a wisdom and a sort of, I would say, cosmic joie de vivre in a lot of ways, right? So I think it's a really interesting sign in that it brings out the best in us, like really generous and open-hearted and expansive. And at times it can bring out the worst of us as well. When Sagittarius descends into judgment, sometimes it can be a very bigoted sign. It's like, I'm a Sag, I'm not a bigot. I'm just telling you, right? It can descend into that sort of model at times, right? So the highest vibrational component of Sagittarius is open, expansive, and hearty, and there's plenty of food at the table for everybody, right? The downside of Sagittarius is much more controlling and at times dictatorial and hardcore, really hardcore. Joseph Stalin was a hardcore motherfucker, right? So during this time of season, I think it's great to practice generosity, right? Like as just a, function, not even to see what comes back to you. Just, this is a generous time. we live in a time where everybody's tightening their belts because they don't know what the fuck is going to happen. We don't, it's like, okay, we've got all these digital coin barons that are rubbing elbows with Trump constantly. His family is selling off Bitcoin. Whenever Trump makes a announcement, they seem to be just slightly ahead of these major announcements. I think the last Bitcoin sell-off was triggered by Eric Trump selling a shit ton of Bitcoin. Before that, it was Barron Trump. So the Trumps are impacting the Bitcoin marketplace. So is BlackRock, by the way. It's a whole different story. But no, it's good. It's a good month, right? And even though it feels weird in terms of where things are going, because there's no clear path. I mean, that's the thing with Trump is that I'm just getting a little political now. Who's a Gemini, Sun Uranus conjunction, keeping it in the astrological realm. He feels like he's making it up, but he's flying by the seat of his pants sometimes. Right? Like I could just see him sitting around at about 1 a.m, sucking on his 15th Diet Coke of the day. From McDonald's, by the way. They have the special Diet Coke at McDonald's. So we'll have somebody go out and bring him a number of Diet Cokes, right? And he'll probably have them in the refrigerator right at a certain temperature so that the special ice, stays icy. So when he pulls that Diet Coke out of his little special refrigerator at just the right temperature, it's just like how he gets at McDonald's. Like he'll be sucking on number 15, sitting around on his cell phone. Like, who can we make a deal with? Oh, Bin Salman. Let me get Jared on the phone. You know Trump talks his ass off on the phone. He's a phone guy. You know he's a phone guy. He grew up with the phone. He would call Roy Cohn anywhere between 10 to 12 times a day. He was constantly talking with Roy Cohn. Constantly. Trump is a big phone guy. Let me get on the phone with Jared. Jared, we need to do a deal with MBS. What do you got? We need a deal. So they do $1 billion deal with Saudi Arabia. And loosely, it's like, well, we're going to get $1 billion. And that's, a feather in Trump's cap, right? Sitting around at about 11:30 at night. Who can we do a deal with? And let's close this deal. What do we need? What do we get? What do we give them? So the deal is that they're going to get weapons from the U.S. Now, the Israelis already get F-35s. And they have said that they don't want the Saudi Arabians to get the same F-35s that they get. They don't want them to have the same potential. They want the U.S. to give them a slightly scaled down version so that the Israelis have the advantage in the air. I think of hubris, but nonetheless. So they're getting weapons and they're getting like nuclear engineers and people that know how to build nuclear reactors. Who knows how to do that? This country does. That's what they're getting in exchange for their $1 billion. So Trump will send them people from, I don't know, Rand or whoever, GE, whoever builds out nuclear reactors these days, right? They'll do a deal. Some company is going to get a killer deal. And then they'll send their people over there to Saudi Arabia and they'll make these nuclear reactors because they need it for their AI. What's interesting is that Pluto them are two of the ingredients for nuclear, atomic energy, right? It's like those are the two. And what's everybody clamoring for now? More nuclear energy, more atomic energy. Yeah, we need these plants. Microsoft is going to open 3 Mile Island just so they can power an AI plant. Hello, Pluto and Aquarius. All right. My advice to you, be open to life's lessons during the month of Sagittarius. That's what it's all about. Be open to life's lessons. Everything brings with it the ability to learn and grow. Positively and maybe negatively as well. You can learn from it. I can learn from this. I can grow from this. I can get better, right? Everything becomes a spiritual lesson. And of all the signs, I've always felt like Sagittarius is the one that in a lot of ways brings us closest to this idea of God. And it's because of its location. Going into Tibet to meet the masters inside of, the backside of Mount Meru or something like that, right? And so, but that's what it's about. We have this opportunity to learn from an exalted standpoint, and to be able to practice not just the learning part, but the dispensation, which is about generosity and goodwill, and keeping an open and expansive space for others. So I love this month, and if you can go into, and we'll look at some of the planetary action, but if you go into this month with that kind of energy, you'll get a lot out of it, and you'll get things back, right? It's one of those. Sagittarius is one of those months. Think and grow rich, along those lines. That's Sagittarius. But you don't really have to think that, oh, I'm doing this. You just have to embody it. Watch the miracles, right? Watch the miracles come about. Okay. Let's see. Let's get into now. We're here now. All right. Yeah, let me drop this down here. Oh, no, here. There we go. All right. So this is where there's the sun, 2 degrees, Sagittarius. Mercury is now back at 23 degrees. And it's conjuncting with Venus, which I think is really interesting because of this grand trine that's still happening. Jupiter's retrograde, Neptune's retrograde, Saturn's retrograde, Mercury's retrograde, Pluto's moving forward, and Venus is moving forward as well. But I feel like there's some cool stuff here with relationship. And there's like a remembering of, like, if you're in a relationship, it's a remembering of why you're with that person. Right? It's like, oh yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. I know why. Right? I mean, because sometimes we lose sight of, who the other is in the drama of our own lives. And we have a habituation at times in relationship, and we wind up occupying these roles, and sometimes we're not always conscious and aware. But this is the energy that allows us to go, oh yeah, I know why this person's in my life. And it's not just intimate relationships as well, although with Scorpio, clearly there is that beneath the sheets feel to it with Venus and Scorpio. But it's also, people that, like, when you get into a Venus Saturn trine and Neptune's there, which makes it more transpersonal, these are people that you have very deep bonds with. And like, oh yeah, I'm going to know this person until the day I die or something. Or you're my friend to the end, or there's something along those lines, right? Like there is that energy, there is that vibe in the air. And I feel like, we're coming into Thanksgiving and family. And I'm just going to throw this out there to you guys. Celebrate this Thanksgiving like it's your last Thanksgiving. Celebrate this Thanksgiving like it's your last Thanksgiving. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. I'm partially saying it because of the planets, right? With Scorpio and all this retrograde going on. Like it's just, but I also feel like we still have a sense of normalcy to some degree. Like we still have a sense of routine and order. I think in 2026, all bets are off. 2026, everything is just poised to be even more chaotic. So we're kind of at the end of order, I think, in a lot of ways. Now, does that mean that the world is going to completely go to hell in a handbasket and we're going to lose the population of half the planet? No, I'm not saying that. But things are going to rapidly accelerate in 2026. It's the year of the fire horse. We've got Saturn, Neptune coming into Aries. For Jupiter romps back into, Uranus romps back into Gemini for a minute, and it's just combustible, really, really combustible. And again, from a political perspective, I don't really see Donald Trump never have as a stabilizing influence. It's not what he's about. He's a disruptor. And I feel like at some point, people need to sit down and have a break, right? Like it's usually associated with assimilation. Like you go through a crazy period of work, whether it's a project that you're working on at work, and you're having to pull extra hours in on a weekend or at home or whatever, right? And it can be pretty prolonged. At some point, it has to stop. And it has to come to an end. And the project is presented to like your super or director or whomever, and it's done. It's out of your hands. And that intense period of chaos and deadline and pressure comes to a stop. What's happened is that we never come to a place where we can stop, at least socially. Right? We never get to this place where, well, we've done X, Y, and Z, and we've returned to some degree of normalcy and we can breathe a little bit. Right? Like, let's take groceries, for instance. They're fucking still expensive. They're really expensive. Fuel, still very expensive, especially in places like California. Here in Texas, it's not too bad. But nobody's getting a real sense of like relief, right? Like we just can't stop for a second. Go, oh, okay. Yeah, we got this. We got to win. We integrated this. Our lives are starting to feel more back on track. We haven't had that. We didn't have it in 4 years of Trump. We didn't have it in 4 years of Obama. and we haven't had it in 1 year. So the chaos, the level of chaos seems to be growing, right? It's becoming exponential in a lot of ways. And somebody like Trump, who has a with it, like, and I can do more things with it. And he's not, he doesn't, he's at this point where he doesn't really care what people think about him. But I'm just trying to make a point. And I'm not, look, if Trump had the ability to, it's like this whole thing with hemp is just such bullshit, and it's him and his administration that's pushing back on hemp for CBD products. And it's like, that's not a win. Who is that a win for? It's a win for big pharma. It's a win for big alcohol. It's a win for these conservative Christians who thinks it's the devil's lettuce, right? It's the win for the cannabis cartels, the Chinese and the Mexicans that run the cartels with them to grow the cannabis. It's not a win for people that have CBD businesses like our friend Chris. Like, that would be, we had a win. Can't you just leave well the fuck enough alone? And just like, there are over, God, how many? Like, there's like 100,000 jobs connected. The internet is skipping. All right, let me. I can try another one. I'll try the other. Period of time, like after a war, like after World War II, we at least had a few years before the Vietnamese started to, and the North Koreans started to get their, underwear lit on fire. We just had a few years where, okay, we're going to go be a country now. We just spent the last 5 years at war. We're going to be a country now. We have been at war in this country. We're at war with the left. We're at war with the right. We're at war with the black. We're at war with the white. We're at war with the straight. We're at war with the gay. We're at war with the trannies. We're at war with the Jews. We're at war with the Muslims. I mean, we were living in a fucking war. Every single day is a war. I mean, we don't have bullets flying over our heads, but every day it's a war out there somewhere. Somebody somewhere is out in some kind of foxhole somewhere for whatever their belief system is or their disbelief system. And everybody's running around with their cortisol levels through the fucking roof most of the time. And we don't have any respite. There's always something. Now it's like Trump wants to go in. Like, he's basically said, you can't, commercial airlines, you're not flying to Venezuela. Like, there's a very good chance they're going to be going after Venezuela. Because Venezuela has huge amounts of oil. And they believe that Venezuela is running the drug trade. Are they involved in it? I don't, maybe. We know the cartels are. Are the cartels working with Maduro and Venezuela? Like, most of the cocaine that comes from South America comes out of Colombia and Peru. Like, does Venezuela operate because they have coastal access? I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the Venezuelan drug trade, but clearly that is the threat, the imminent threat, or at least the imminent threat that's being given to us. They're going to go down. They want that oil. And as an American, how does that make you feel? What if Donald Trump was successful in overthrowing Maduro and getting his guy Juan Guaido and getting the multinational corporations down there so that they could take over and have basically the largest access to oil in the Western Hemisphere? And how would you feel about that? If it made gasoline 35 to 40 cents a gallon cheaper, and as a result of that brought prices down, would you be okay with that? And would that be enough? Like, we say, okay, we got Venezuela now, we're good. We that was our goal. We got our guy in there. We did a regime change. We got the multinationals in there. We're good. We could take a break now. But that doesn't happen. That's not on the plan. So what I'm talking about is the acceleration of events that we're going to be staring down in 2026 is going to be very different than what we've ever witnessed before. And that's why I'm looking at this Thanksgiving in kind of a nostalgic view, view. That's what I'm seeing here. Right. So enjoy it. I mean, you're supposed to enjoy it anyway. If you're going to do it, you may as well enjoy it. If not, don't go. Okay, so let's see what we got. Saturn this Friday goes direct, right on Black Friday. How about that? Score some great Black Friday deals. Saturn goes direct at 25 degrees in 9 minutes. And it stations tomorrow. So we have a Saturn station at 2510 Pisces for 1, 2, 3, 4 days. 4 days of Saturn just stationing. That's wild. It's just like this massive body, right? Saturn just stops there. It's like a sentinel gathering whatever it needs to move forward, right? It's very interesting. What's the Sabian symbol for 25? Let's find out. All right, we have 25 Pisces. Oh yeah, we've seen this one before. Pisces 25, a religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influence of perverted practices and materialized ideals. Why does this feel like TPUSA to me? TPUSA ultimately was like a religious organization. I mean, if you look at the leadership, right, you have those two guys, the son and the father. They were very, very instrumental with TPUSA. Charlie Kirk, big Christian. That it felt like these TPUSA events were becoming almost like revivals in some ways. I mean, it started off as these debates on college campuses, but they were becoming more and more religious. They were like, they wanted to start these like TPUSA chapels. And so if this, to me, this now, there's another elephant in the room here that we're going to have to bring up. But we can start with TPUSA. All right, the keynote, the power of the soul, to intervene in the personal life and to induce necessary catharsis. The necessary centralization of the conscious attention and will, symbolized by the preceding picture, most often bring negative results. Exclusivism, pride, jealousy, greed for power and wealth. Every man is a church that has the soul as its God. I can dig that. But most men forget the soul and live according to dogmatic rules and habits, which not only have become empty of inner meaning, but very often have been perverted by the demands of the senses and the emotional nature, and by the ego with its rationalizing intellect. A purging or catharsis is needed to restore not only fresh and creative spontaneity, but even more, the contact with the soul and the God-ordained Dharma. This is the last stage in the 71st subcycle. It leads significantly to the series of 5 symbols, which concludes the vast cycle, because the final consummation of the process of actualization, or the potency inherent in the original creative act, requires moments of crises and purification. So between tomorrow and Thursday, Saturn is stationing right on this degree, right in this degree in Pisces. So we have TPUSA, sort of this, how would I describe it? TPUSA feels to me like a blimp in a Thanksgiving Day parade that is losing its helium. Right? It's like a giant Charlie Kirk, but it's losing its helium, and it's getting close to the ground. Like that's what TPUSA feels like to me. It's like it's there, but it's going to come crashing down to earth. That's what it feels like. So there's that. The other elephant in the room, of course, is Israel. And everybody is supposed to have the conversation that Israel and Zionism is not Judaism or Jews. We're supposed to separate those things out. But what's making it difficult for that is that this administration has decided that they're going to penalize people for even invoking Zionism. And now Zionism is in some places or in some contexts considered to be anti-Semitic if you bring it up, right? So when that happens, unfortunately, people then connect it to Jews and Judaism because they're the ones that seem to have a problem with people talking about Israel and what they're doing in Gaza and just the influence in this government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So you could try to separate the wheat from the chaff, but I would say that, by and large, what happens is that instead of like refuting, let's say Mark Levin, instead of just name calling Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson, actually debated them and went on their show or whatever, or them on his show, what he's doing is he's now all of a sudden muddying the waters. And it's like, oh, what he's really protecting isn't just Israel and Zionism. He's protecting his identity as a Jew, right? And this is where all of a sudden people start to go, what's going on here? Why can't you step outside of your, like, again, I've said this for years. If you were a white American in the 1960s and 70s and you weren't questioning the Vietnam War, you were excoriated in social circles. Like you were just excoriated. You weren't allowed. So groups are it's incumbent upon groups to take on, at times, the weight of their own conviction. And if they do take on the weight of their own conviction, then they will see whether or not their conviction is worth supporting to the degree in which they zealously support it, whoever or whatever it is. This is what I'm talking about. And so when they don't do that, when somebody like Mark Levin doesn't do that, or somebody like Ben Shapiro doesn't do that, then all of a sudden, what are they? Well, now they're just Jews. They're just Jews covering for other Jews. And that's where now all of a sudden we have this conversation, right? Now it's this bigger conversation. And if you're Jewish, you got to put some heat on these people, because they're the ones that are out front, and they're the ones that are muddying the waters, and they're the ones that are creating a realm of animosity. And they just think that if they yell it loud enough, long enough, that they'll be able to outshout and talk over other people at a rapid pace with ear-splitting volume. And it doesn't work. It's not working anymore. So there's something corrupt, right? There's something corrupt in all these religions, to be honest with you. In fact, Mike Huckabee just met with Jonathan Pollard. If you know, Mike Huckabee is a born-again dispensationalist. Daughter, Sarah Sanders Huckabee, I believe, is the governor of Arkansas? Is that right? One of those southern states. Anyway, Mike Huckabee is a dispensationalist, and he is an ambassador to Israel. I don't think they should have a dispensationalist. Anyway, he just met with Jonathan Pollard. And Jonathan Pollard was one of the worst spies in the history of this country. He made the Rosenbergs look like five and dime thieves. And he was selling all of these nuclear secrets, mostly to Israel, but he was selling to Russia too. He didn't care. He wanted the money, but mostly Israel. And he wound up going to jail. The Rosenbergs got the electric chair. He should have gotten the electric chair. By the way, there used to be a woman who would come by and hang out on these shows. Her husband was one of the arresting FBI officers of Jonathan Pollard. And she said that when they arrested him, he literally defecated in his pants. That's what happened. So he gets arrested. He goes to prison. Well, with all this pressure from Israel under Trump won, he gets let out. And not only that, but Trump even pardons him. So now Jonathan Pollard is living in Israel, and he wants to run for the Knesset. And we have Mike Huckabee kind of covertly meeting with Jonathan Pollard on the side. This is a guy who's a traitor. Now, you want to talk about corruption and perverted ideals and practices, two separate people from two separate worlds and two separate religions, clearly meeting off the books, a little corrupt there. So we got about 4 days ahead of us from tomorrow through Thursday with this Saturn stationed at 10 degrees and all of these potentialities are out there. And we still haven't heard the end of this Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, right? She dumped that on a Friday. It's weird. There's something weird. I don't know if they got to her. I don't know what happened, but she doesn't strike me as somebody who just gives up. She does have Mars in Cancer, which isn't, it's great at defending, don't get me wrong. She's a great defender. But, man, here's the alarm clock, the clock again. Is that kind of nice? Anyway, this is a week. This is a week where the dirt surfaces, like the corruption comes up. But however, part of this symbol is the religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influence. So there's something about this week that is setting the stage for some kind of purification or catharsis, which we've all been waiting for a long time, haven't we? I think we have. All right, why don't we get into not Pollard. Let's get into this Jeffrey Epstein thing. So one of the things that I have noticed about this whole Epstein affair is Pluto. Okay. The reason why this Jeffrey Epstein thing won't go away is because Pluto retrograded back onto his sun at 1 degree. And Pluto went into Aquarius the day that Donald Trump, for the second time, Donald Trump got inaugurated, which meant that it was a fait accompli, resurrecting the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein. And when we get into Pluto and Scorpio, the ruling planet here, right? When we get into it, there is an obsession that's related to Pluto, right? It can be an erotic obsession. It can be a psychosexual obsession. It can be an obsession with, like, I'm obsessed with crows now, crows and ravens, right? It could be that kind of thing where you just all of a sudden you're just into it, right? That's very Plutonian and very Scorpionic. And one of the reasons why the Jeffrey Epstein thing can't go away or won't go away is because of Pluto. It's right there, right? Right there. It's coming out. This whole thing with Pluto is going to expose. Now, they can clean it up all the fuck they want, redact, whatever, but it's not going to be done. Like, we're going to be dealing with this Epstein thing for a while. Because even when it moves off of the sun slightly, right? Even when it's moving off of the sun ever so slightly, it's going to be squaring up against his part of fortune, which is right at the top of his chart. Look at that in the 10th house. He's got Scorpio on his midheaven. See that? That's all sex, man. That's sex, power, part of fortune, right? And Scorpio is very much connected to espionage, deep cover, right? So that Pluto squaring part of fortune, it's almost like it's like hitting a piñata and all this shit falls out from the piñata. So whatever it is that they have, if we get anything, we'll only get a portion of it, but there's something else out there. Something else is out there. So I think somebody's going to get a hold of some Epstein documents that are outside of everything we've gotten so far. But it's not for a while. It won't be for at least another 4 to 5 months. And it squares off that part of fortune, which is the highest point in Epstein's chart. And down it comes, right? Down it comes. This all started problematically for him when Pluto was starting to square his Saturn. I'll show you later. I've got a chart for when Epstein died, theoretically. But this is, and we have all these people on the internet who are not letting go of this. And you say, oh, move on. There's other things that are much more pressing and more important. Jeffrey Epstein was running all kinds of schemes and scams for Israel. It wasn't just the United States. I went through his Wikipedia page, and Wikipedia tends to be, more slanted towards the liberal side. They were working on stuff in Nigeria and Ghana, him and Israeli intelligence groups. I mean, it wasn't just the United States. It was Jeffrey Epstein was kind of a major player in terms of setting up kind of almost like global espionage units. It's wild. I mean, I think Jeffrey Epstein is the equivalent of a super spy. Now, one of the things that he had as a superpower is that he was a polymath, and he was very, very good at mathematics. He graduated from high school at 16 and was a very good pianist, right? Like, you can't be a really good musician unless you're good at math. And he graduated at 16. So he was kind of a polymath. He was very, very good at numbers, even though he didn't go to college. Well, it doesn't really matter, right? And he's got Mercury and Chiron in the first. I thought the Chiron in the first house was interesting. I mean, especially given these latest emails where Epstein's supposed to have this lemon-shaped PP, right? Like, it's Chiron in the first. It's almost like he's disfigured or something, and especially in Capricorn. But he doesn't look that way on the surface. I mean, he doesn't have that sort of Capricornian kind of grizzled look. He does a little bit as he gets older. He's one of these guys, Capricorn risings. He started to age. You can see that it was starting to take a bit of a toll on him. But he has Mercury in the first house at 21, and it's in a wide trine in Capricorn. It's in a wide trine with Jupiter down in the fourth in Taurus. That's the ability to make money, right? So he was good at making money and breaking rules and accepting. For a guy who had such a weird weenie, he was very comfortable in his body. I guess that's what would happen if you were to live. You know what I think? I think Jeffrey Epstein graduated from high school early because of like gym. That's what I think. Because he has his Chiron at 15, right? And he would have had to disrobe in front of his classmates, usually in high school and gym. I think that's what happened. I think he decided to get the hell out of there. That's his chirotic crisis. And he leaves school right around that, right? Like, what did he suffer? Some kind of humiliating event, which said, fuck this, I'm out of here. I'm going to take my GED and get it, which is what he did. And he would graduate because he was way ahead of everybody too. That's the other part of it. But it's this Pluto, right? This Pluto is going to crack open the Epstein thing. Like, we can't get away from it because it's conjunct his sun. That's why people are continuing to harangue Trump about it. That's why more comes out about it. These emails from his brother, third house, right? So he's got the moon in his third house. That's interesting. That's an interesting position for the moon. Huh. Was his mom a teacher? She might have been a teacher. That would fit. He was a teacher. He was an inappropriate teacher too. See, that's the thing. Like, Jeffrey Epstein was already making inappropriate kinds of remarks and passes to young girls when he was working for Donald Barr, Bill Barr's father, right? This is where it all started. And he's got Jupiter in the fourth house in Taurus. You think this guy lived well? Fuck yeah, he lived well. He had an island. He had the largest residential uh, address in New York City. Wrap your head around that. One building, largest residential address. He lived there. They also had this ranch in New Mexico where Jeffrey Epstein could create a planet of lemon-shaped penis boys. That's big, right? So Jupiter in the fourth house, Taurus. The guy lived well. Wherever he lived well. And he has this weird, and I've talked about this before, he has this weird intersexual vibe with this Venus-Mars conjunction. And Venus leads, right? So he comes off as being more feminine than masculine. And people that have a Venus-Mars conjunction have a strange charisma about them. It's this intermingling between the masculine and the feminine. So it's a strange charisma. And he has strange relationships too. And they're all filled by Uranus. This is somebody who's he's not there for commitment. Like his thing with Ghislaine Maxwell, it's a business arrangement. She's a Capricorn, so her shit's going to be in his first house. So together they form kind of one body and one team. But there's no way you could have a relation like a monogamous relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Fucking forget about that. With Uranus on his descendant and Venus, Mars trying it in there. And so, but the other thing about him, and I've said this before, is that he did not live. My sense with Jeffrey Epstein is that he did not live with a lot of judgment, right? Like he hung out with Donald Trump for a decade. And Donald Trump's worst decade. The 90s were Donald Trump's worst decade. I think he started to clean his act up a little bit in the 2000s. He had a TV show that he had to kind of be on the up and up with, right? The Apprentice. So we're going to look at his and Trump's chart together, by the way. But I feel like the ghost of Epstein is with Pluto. And that's why this won't go away. It won't go away until it is resolved. Next year, Pluto gets up to 5 and it retrogrades. So it starts to come in and square his midheaven. And that's when I think I'm on the record. I think we'll still be talking about Jeffrey Epstein a year from now. Now, it may go away partially, once the aliens pop out of 3i Atlas, we might have something different to talk about. But it's going to come back. And that midheaven is going to pop open and the shit is going to rain down on the rest of his chart. And you'll get some people, they'll get some Democrats in the crosshairs now, but it's nothing. Somebody is going to get something. Somebody's going to find something. Somebody's going to hack something. It won't come through whatever they're going to be releasing and Pam Bondi and their latest explanation. It'll be completely by surprise. Nobody will see it coming. One day it'll be a dump and nobody will see it coming. Nobody's going to talk about it and say, well, I've got a bunch of stuff and dirt that I'm going to release on Epstein. Like, nobody's going to do that. It's just going to come out of theoretical nowhere. Now, where is it going to be? I don't know. I don't know who's going to get in possession of it. I mean, that's what WikiLeaks was for, right? Ostensibly. Times, do you think they would post? Depends on what side of the political fence they're on. But this is why we still talk about him. It's Pluto. It's this Plutonian effect. We can't really let it go because it's not resolved, number one. And Pluto has not finished its work. It ain't over till it's over, right? Bottom line. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here. Oh yeah, when I do this, if you want to see what his relation with Donald Trump is like, what is this one? This is the night Jeffrey Epstein died, theoretically. Let's put this up here. Okay, so this is July 23rd at roughly 1:23 a.m. This is where the planets were. There's the aforementioned Pluto, and it's on his Mercury. Saturn was just about on his Chiron, right? So how I would determine this is that this is some form of governmental hierarchy that's involved in this moment. Now, which part of the government, I can't tell you, right? But Saturn is, especially in Capricorn, right? Saturn in Capricorn is always about the government and corporations, political hierarchies, judges. So we know that Bill Barr was the judge at this time, and he was there. He was Trump's fixer, right? We're pretty deep into Trump. We're like year 3 into Trump. And so I think that I would say that Saturn Pluto is probably indicative of, but not solely attributed to, Bill Barr, any of the espionage agencies, and the people that were at a higher level that were working together in order to extract him. Now, Mark Epstein, his brother, thinks he's dead, right? He's convinced that Jeffrey's dead. I'm not convinced, but Mark Epstein is convinced. Pluto's there. Hey, look, he's not around anymore, so we certainly don't see him, right? So theoretically, he's, again, a phantom, a ghost, dead. But I feel like this is a really interesting chart, especially in this moment, right? Right there. And what's also fascinating is because it happens on July 23rd, there are all these planets in Cancer. Let's see, Mercury is in Cancer and Venus is in Cancer. The Sun has just gone into Leo. But these late Cancer planets and even the true node, well, these are planets that are kind of connected to Donald Trump, right? Now we have Mars on his south node in Leo. That's interesting. Who else has Mars in Leo? Donald Trump. And that Mars is at 13 degrees. So that Mars is conjunct Trump's Pluto. And that's on Epstein's south node. That's interesting. Donald Trump knows what happened to Epstein. I can tell you that right now. He knows exactly what happened. He was involved with this. Like he's in this chart. Like this is where his Saturn is. This is where his Venus is. This transiting Mars is conjunct his Pluto, which is conjunct Jeffrey Epstein's south node. And then you have this is also really interesting. this moon conjunction in the third house, and then there's Chiron there. It almost feels like there's like a double or a doppelganger or a stand-in for Epstein. Like whoever that was that we saw didn't even look like him. And his home at that time was the jail, which is very 12th housey. Nothing in the 12th house. But there's Uranus, which is like he was living, I guess, in the jail in the Southern District of New York. Uranus is quick, fast, right? Boom, gone. And that's just sitting there. And how he got out of his home, right? Like picked up, taken out of his home, flown to New York. Who knows what they're telling him? Don't worry. It's just a formality. Like, who knows what they were telling him? You're going to get out of this mess. Whatever they were telling him, that wasn't really true. Look, even with Neptune, like Neptune is this sort of hazy, filmy kind of mist that's over his Mars, Venus. So it's almost like a fog, like he just disappears in this sort of, well, he doesn't really disappear. I mean, theoretically, we see somebody, but we're not really sure who that somebody is. But if I were to, so there's definitely, this is definitely the hand of the machine, like manipulating his physical reality, right? And I'm going to go in with like Bill Barr as being a finger on the hand of the machine. And then there's Trump over here on this side of his chart. Let me see. I actually have, if you're Trump, wouldn't you want his ass out of the picture? I would. I definitely would. Now, I think I have, let me see if I have it. It's right here. Yeah, let's see. So that's Epstein on the outside. So they both show up in each other's seventh house. Let me do a super here. Hold on. Okay, so this is Epstein with Trump on the outside, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so remember I said Mercury and Venus were over here? Remember that? And I said late Cancer? Well, there we go. There we go. Remember I said Donald Trump's Pluto was over here? Remember there was Mars there? Transiting Mars was right there. Right there. Transiting Mars was on Epstein's south node, conjunct Trump's Pluto. That's it, Trump's Venus Saturn. And they definitely had some kind of a partnership. And I'll flip it around and I'll show you on the Jeffrey Epstein side of things as well. Right. So this is why when I looked at that other chart and I saw Mercury, Venus in Cancer. Oh, here's Venus, Saturn in Cancer. Right. Same position. Venus very, very close. These are the fingerprints. And Trump has a working relationship with Epstein. Right. Partners. There's some partnering going on there. And Trump's got this interesting Mercury-Uranus conjunction. Trippy. But yes, Sun in the sixth house. He wanted in on Jeffrey Epstein's money game. That's what he was really interested in. Yeah, the teens and the beauty pageant shit, like, oh, I'm sure that got his juices flowing. But what got his juices flowing even more was watching how he was making all this money, because Trump loves money. And during that time period, Trump had 3 bankruptcies. So I think Trump was also probably in need of some money. And Jeffrey Epstein had all kinds of connections, not the least of which was Les Wexner. The only other planet I think that really has some bang is Trump's Mars, and that's in Epstein's 8th house. And that is the house of the taboo and eroticism and sexuality, the underworld, stuff that's not always rated PG, right? And his Mars is there. And Epstein's Black Moon Lilith in Virgo is also there as well. And when you think, I don't know, when I think of Black Moon Lilith in Virgo, I think of virgins. I think of young women. And I think of them being in the 8th house, the temptress, right? The temptress of the 8th house. Jeffrey Epstein had mother issues. And there's Trump's Mars, right? It's like, feels a little predatory in that 8th house. Just saying, as an astrologer. Okay? It's not like Mars in the 6th house. Jeffrey, come on down to the work site, put on a hard hat, and I'll show you around the new building. And I'll break out the blueprints and the plans. I'll let you drive in a ceremonial stake or something. Right? Like that would be very 6th housey shit. That's not the 8th house. That is not. His son is there in the 6th house. 8th house is very different. Very, very different. But what I was trying to show you with this synastry, and even that south node Pluto, right? Like this whole, the thing with Pluto is we can't let go. How many times do you think, I'm just throwing this out there, how many times do you think that Donald Trump may have wanted to ditch the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Or maybe vice versa. I don't know. Because with the South Node, it's like the idea is that they've been there, done that. They've already gone through this reenactment before. But it is kind of revitalized with Trump's series on Epstein's true node in Aquarius. And I think Jeffrey Epstein had an ability to be free inside of himself that Donald Trump did not have. And I think Donald Trump envied Jeffrey Epstein for that in some ways. Does that make sense? Like, when you look at Epstein, you get a sense that he knows who he is, for better or worse, right? For better or worse, he knew who he was. He was a pervert with a lemon-shaped penis. So that's Trump on the outside. Okay, and here's Epstein. Let me show you. Now, this is Epstein's synastry with Trump. Right there. Okay, so again, look at the 7th house. Partnership. We had Saturn and Venus with Mercury on the cusp here for Donald on the outside and Jeffrey on the inside. All right, here's Epstein, Venus, Mars, Juno, 7th house. Right, so they are entangled in that 7th house. They've got a partnership. Now, to what extent that partnership manifests, well, I'm sure we'll find out. But to say that they were not entangled based on these two charts would be completely fallacious, because it's there. It's totally there, right? And here's Trump's Mars, which we saw in Epstein's 8th house, right? That's Trump's Mars. There's Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith, the virgins, right? The forbidden fruit, right here in Donald Trump's first house. This is what Jeffrey Epstein is bringing to the table. So he's bringing to the party. There's that South Node Pluto conjunction. Here, oh my God, this is like fucking blackmailable city right here with Trump. The secrets of Pluto, South Node in the 12th. Oh. And then here's Epstein's Pluto creeping up on Trump's Mars, right? Creeping up on Trump's Mars. Interesting. And again, some sixth house action, True Node on Ceres, which we looked at over here. And that would have been in Trump's, second house? Yeah. And he's got a sixth house relationship with Trump as well. So there is some like work stuff going on here because they both have that sixth house sun. But then these planets, Venus, Mars, Juno, Saturn, Venus, Mercury, they're all entangled. They're all connected in some kind of partnership. You can use your better judgment to try to figure out what that partnership is. Trump's midheaven. So there's Epstein's. Now, what's interesting is Epstein's Jupiter is in his ninth house. And Jupiter represents ninth house is other countries. Who's a Taurus that's from another country that Trump meets through Jeffrey Epstein? It's Melania. So Jeffrey Epstein was a conduit for Donald Trump for women, beauty from other countries. Right here. Right there. And also foreign investment coming in through Trump's ninth house. But it squares Pluto, and Trump probably made some deals he probably would want to unmake with that Jupiter-Pluto square, if he could. Anyway, I just don't think it's going to go away because of Pluto. And my feeling is that it could subside, but when you least expect it, when Pluto gets to around 4 or 5 degrees next year, it goes to 5 in retrogrades. When it gets to around 4 or 5, it's like, it's the dump. It's the dump from Epstein's midheaven and the Pluto square, and it just comes out of nowhere. Like, whoa, where did this come from? And it'll be shocking. Now, that time period that we're looking at, if we want to get very specific, it always helps to be somewhat specific. Pluto gets to 5 degrees in March. We're not that far away. 320. 320. Pluto gets to 5 degrees and starts to square. It'll square his part of fortune and starts to square his midheaven. So I would circle March on your calendar, even though it's only going to be at 4 degrees at the beginning. I'd circle March on your calendar for a very interesting chapter and reveal in the Jeffrey Epstein story. All right. I hope that you guys got something out of this tonight and found some of this interesting. We talked about a lot. I think that's it. That's it. I'm going to be working on my website tomorrow. So if you're going to purchase a reading, just wait until the contact function is restored. I had no idea it had gotten blown out. Anyway, my apologies. So just wait. In the meantime, check out our good friends over at Silver-Botanicals and also True Hemp Science. There's a 20% first-time buyer deal off in True Hemp Science. And you also, if you put 15MINS down, when you type it in when you leave, you will get the goodie bag. And the goodie bag will come with some gummies, some droppers with some really cool tinctures in them. So it's a deal on top of a deal right now over on True Hemp Science. Okay, thank you for being here, mods. Thank you for taking care of business in the chat. And we'll be back on Tuesday with the astro weather. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step what's possible. And remember, this is the month of Sagittarius. Breathe in some joy, some gratitude, some joie de vivre into your life, and do it responsibly. We'll see you on Tuesday.